I hereby call on March 4th, 2024, a meeting of the Town of Hanson Planning Board to order it at 6:35 p.m. I would also like to announce for all those in attendance that this meeting is being recorded for distribution on Women Hanson Community Access. Playback times and other related information on this recording can be found at whca.tv. Please let the record reflect that we've moved the meeting from the meeting hall, room A on the second floor down to the select board meeting room on the main level. Some environmental reasons. It's really hot up there right now. So we've moved the meeting downstairs to the main meeting room on the first floor. In addition to that call to order, we are going to note for the record in attendance, we have 4 members of the planning board with Mr. Ellis absent at this time, as well as the attendance of the full planning board, planning office itself with our town planner and administrative assistants. In addition to that, some clerical things that we want to make sure is that anybody that's here in attendance, please make sure that you've signed in with your name and address on our sign-in sheet. We would ask that you would please silence your cell phones, and if there are any recordings of this meeting that are going to be taking place, please make sure that you notify the chair so that we can have that in the record as well. Seeing how we're about that time, yes.
Chairman, I am recording the meeting.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that Mr. Diaz is recording the meeting. Video and audio?
Yes.
Video and audio. Great, thank you. Before we get into our meeting of our public hearing, which was slated for 6:35, the chair would entertain a motion to take the agenda out of order.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Kemet.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cohen. We're going to take the 6:30 approval of February 26, 2024 public meeting minutes out of order and tack that on to the end of our meeting. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4-0-1, Tony. Seeing the time have arrived, we are going to go into our public hearing. We have a continued public hearing to amend the Town of Hanson zoning map and the Town of Hanson land use regulation zoning bylaws in accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5 and Section 3A, the Zoning Act. The MBTA district map, as defined on the agenda, as well as the draft zoning bylaws, will be discussed in this public hearing. Before we get into that, I would like to read something into the record. Subject to clarification regarding recent rumors in the MBTA zoning area. Dear residents, I hope this finds you well. I'm writing to address some recent rumors that have been circulating within our community. It has come to my attention that there is misinformation spreading, and I believe it is crucial to provide clarity and transparency. Rumors can be unsettling and create unnecessary anxiety among residents. In the spirit of open communications, I want to assure you that the Town of Hanson Planning Board's primary goal is to keep everybody informed and foster a sense of unity within our town. One of the rumors circulating pertains to accusatory language about the Town of Hanson Planning Office and the landowners of the proposed MBTA zone. I would like to categorically state that there is no truth to this rumor. Our town government is committed to upholding the highest standards of honesty and integrity, and any information circulated without proper verification should be treated with skepticism. It is essential for us as a community to rely on accurate and verified information. If you ever have concerns or questions about any issues, please feel free to reach out to the appropriate channels, such as our town offices like the Town of Hanson Planning Department. We are here to address your queries and provide the information you need to dispel any uncertainties. Additionally, I encourage all residents to be mindful of the impact rumors can have on our community's cohesion. Let us prioritize open dialogue, fact-checking, and respectful communication to maintain the trust and harmony that define our town. In the coming weeks, we will be again presenting to the community information to address any lingering concerns and answer questions directly. Your participation is crucial to building a strong and informed community. Together, we can foster an environment where accurate information prevails and rumors are dispelled through open and honest communication. Thank you for your understanding and continued support. Sincerely, Joe Campbell, Planning Board Chair, 2024, Town of Hanson. I'm going to be submitting that into the record. Thank you. That statement is from my chair seat. I speak on behalf of myself as the chair of the planning board. We will go into our public hearing by a presentation from the town planner. Town planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the planning board has been tasked with a report to the select board regarding the overlay district bylaws and the new overlay district zoning, or part of the zoning map. So at the last hearing, there was a few edits that the planning board wished to have made. Town council has reviewed those edits, and that's what you have before you this evening, and that's what's been that's what's out here for also for the public. So that's I'm going to use the term final language after its review of the board and the town council and the map. And after discussion, if the board chooses to, they would provide a report to the select board regarding their findings and whether they support or do not support the bylaw.
Great, thank you. Let the record reflect, we do have an edit and omit from the last meeting of the word missed to mixed use developments, which is great. We also have the insertion of the word minimum as opposed to the word missed again. And we also have electric bike storage to meet all building and fire code requirements. Those were the changes from the last planning board meeting a week ago. Tony, do you want to do any kind of a recap or review of how we got here and where we're at right now?
Sure. The Commonwealth, under the previous governor, created a housing mandate in the attempts to create more affordable housing throughout Massachusetts. So what they've done is communities that have rapid transit or commuter rail or even commuter rail adjacent are required to create a zoning district that would allow for multifamily housing by right versus in special permits. So in some cases, let's say Hanson allows for a multifamily in a residential district, but it's going to be under special permit versus by right because it's not been specifically zoned for that. So Hanson, as a commuter rail station, has to create just the zone for multifamily housing within half a mile of the commuter rail station. The state then provided an Excel workbook, and at that time we received a grant from to work with the Old Colony Planning Council, and they input all this information. You sort of figure out a district, and then they input all the information to verify that the district complies with the requirements within that workbook. We finished that with Old Colony Planning Council, I believe it was the end of last June. Or was it? Yes, because we're in 2024. So last June. Then we received an additional grant to work with a company called VHB. They also took a look at the workbook, made some minor adjustments, and it's the district that you see that's on the map today. And they also assisted with the bylaws themselves. So at this point, we had held public hearings regarding that, and now the planning board had submitted to the select board as part of the process of creating bylaws under section 5 of the zoning act. The bylaws were submitted to the select board, which in then turn requires that the planning board give a report. And it's kind of an odd thing because there's different bodies that can propose zoning bylaws, planning board being one of them. So now we're at the point where the planning board is being requested by the select board to issue that report. So that's where we're today. And what would happen is once the planning board gives their report to the select board, they would make a determination as to whether or not to move this to town meeting. Because ultimately, because this is a bylaw, town meeting vote is required. The difference is this bylaw is not a 2/3 vote at town meeting, it's a majority vote. So the people will decide at the end whether to accept the district and the bylaw or not. The downside to not accepting is this being a mandate, the Attorney General's office had come out with a notice, if you will, stating that any community not in compliance is subject to not being able to apply for grant funding under 3 specific types of grants. They've further gone on to say that it's not just those grants that would be affected, that any grant that a town that is non-compliant would apply for, that would be looked at as a factor in whether or not that grant was received, or they would receive that grant. So that's the position of the state at this point. So we're moving forward to try and remain in compliance for the sake that Hanson uses grant money and needs grant money to fund in certain projects that we're trying to do here. And but in the end, it's up to the citizens as to whether they want to move forward.
Great, thank you very much. To complement some of what the town planner was discussing, we have here records, it's all public record. We have here a copy of the advisory that was put out 1 year ago. It was put out 1 year ago by Andrea Joy Campbell, Attorney General for the state of Massachusetts. I'm going to quote a few things from this advisory. Advisory concerning enforcement of the MBTA community zoning law. Requirements imposed by the MBTA community zoning law, the law, enacted to address the Commonwealth's acute need for housing by facilitating the development of transit-oriented multifamily housing. The law directly responds to this crisis by implementing zoning reforms that require MBTA communities to permit reasonable levels of multifamily housing development near transit stations. Cities and towns have broad authority to enact local zoning ordinances and bylaws to promote this public welfare, so long as they are not inconsistent with constitutional or statutory requirements. The MBTA community zoning law provides one such statutory requirement. The MBTA communities must allow at least one zoning district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right, within a half a mile of a transit station. Development at a minimum gross density of 15 units per acre. That advisory goes on in regards to some other recommendations that were put on to us with this Mass General Law being enacted by the former administration, and then therefore towns and municipalities in Massachusetts having to be reactionary, very reactionary, to this new Mass General Law. The letter further states, all MBTA communities must comply with the law. Communities that do not currently have a compliant multifamily zoning district must take steps outlined in the DHCD guidelines to demonstrate interim compliance. The town of Hanson jumped on that, and we were interim compliant at the beginning and the inception of this MBTA communities law. Town planner did yeoman's work to make sure that we were interim compliant. Communities that fail to comply with the law may be subject to civil enforcement action. Non-compliant MBTA communities are also subject to the administrative consequences of being rendered ineligible to receive certain forms of state funding. Importantly, MBTA communities cannot avoid their obligations under the law by foregoing this funding, meaning if we don't want the funds, we don't want the grants, we don't have to comply. The law requires the MBTA communities shall have a compliant zoning district and does not provide any mechanism by which a town or city may opt out of this requirement. There's further language in this advisory in regards to failure to comply with risk of liability under federal and state fair housing laws. The MBTA community may violate the laws, for example, if zoning restrictions have the effect of unfairly limiting housing. They call that snob zoning. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, and for the public and everybody listening, this is a law that, for lack of a better term, is a polished turd. The Town of Hanson Planning Office, as well as this planning board, since 2022, have been doing yeoman's work ourselves in lifting the education of where we can be compliant with this law, because we know the detriment of not complying with this. There have been many people that have been talking about towns like Milton and towns like Holden. 4 days ago, just 4 days ago, the Healy administration, quoted in the news, said that they are staying true to their commitment and words of enforcement. So what happened in Milton is going to happen to other towns and communities. The only thing that we know, that we have spoken about on multiple occasions, that's bringing revenue into the town of Hanson, or not only thing, but one of the majority ways that the town of Hanson receives funding, is through grants. It's all the taxpayer pool money that goes in, the town applies to grants, we are given grants, we are benefited grants as a result of grant writing and grant processing. We know for a fact, as a result of other towns, that will immediately go away and cease without a doubt. It's already been stated and happening in other towns. As far as the planning office itself, to give you an example of the things that have happened for the planning office to create a zone. Again, to create a zone. It is a line on a map. There is nothing being decided this evening about somebody building. This is to create a zone. The town planner in November of 21 went to an MALSCE conference where there was a presentation about the MBTA zoning. The MMA, the Massachusetts Municipal Association, in 2021 released newsletters that we spoke about. OCPC, our own Plymouth County OCPC, assisted us in 2022 in regards to the creation of this the zone. There's been presentations by the town planner with a PowerPoint slideshow in February of 2022, December of 2023. DHCD guidelines were released and discussed in January of 21. If you want to go back as far as 21 about what was coming down, that was the preliminary guidelines. There were some adjustments after the original meetings. The town planner was staying abreast of all the changes that were happening. There was an original discussion by the planning board. There was a change by the state. We had to discuss it again. In the 2023 annual town report, I have a copy of it if anybody would like to read it. The town planner inserted a lengthy section inside the town report about the MBTA communities. Public hearings on November 27th, November 13th, September 25th, there was a draft zone meeting. For anybody that's listening, we've been dealing with this basically since 2021. And again, it creates a zone. That's what we have on the table this evening, is the draft and the work that has been done for 3 years to create that zone. The process that we have going from here, again, yes, it's the planning board that creates zones in town. All of the zones that we have, Zone A, Zone AA, Zone B, Commercial Industrial, Adult Entertainment Zone, that work was all done by the town planner and the planning board office. It's one of our major duties in town. That's what we have here tonight, is the collection of 3 years' worth of work, countless hours of not only the planning board, but the town planning office to come to where we are today. Understanding completely that May is the flavor of the day, because May town meeting is where this is going to be proposed. But rest assured, this has gone through an absolute ringer to take a polished turd and give it the best college try. Does anybody have any comments from the planning board itself?
Nice job, Tony.
Oh, thanks. I'd like to just make one point about the Milton thing.
Yes.
The
Town planner.
difference between Milton and Hanson is Milton was a rapid transit community. And
Oh,
so there's
correct.
been deadlines. So for rapid transit communities, the deadline was December 31st, 2023. That's why you're seeing the fact that they're non-compliant.
Right.
Hanson's a commuter rail station community, so we have to be in compliance by the end of December 31st, 2024. And then I believe it's commuter adjacent towns have to be in compliance by the end of 2025.
So, explaining that, if we had the MBTA bus, if we had the Red Line, if we had anything rapid transit coming to Hanson, that would be a different story.
Yes.
But we have the commuter rail, so it's a
Correct.
different timeline. No questions, no any other clarification of the board? As this is a public hearing, I'd be more than glad to hear the public. Please, if you're going to speak, state your name, your address, and you can have the floor. We go with Mr. Melisi. You are the first. Mr. Diaz.
He was first. Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Alan Diaz from Health.
Mr. Diaz, thank you.
Are the soil suitable for building in that area?
It's not the jurisdiction of the planning board.
I just want to, I'm going to include this to make sure it becomes part of the record regarding the web soil surveys.
Thank you.
I think you'll find that it's important when you create a zone, that the zone be compatible with what you're trying to do. I have a second question.
Sure thing. So let the record reflect, Mr. Diaz passed in some paperwork in regards to soil conditions for the zone.
They never make the writing easy to see on these maps. It's like you can see them on the screen, but when you print them out, it's like impossible to read.
It's mostly. So, thank you, Mr. Diaz. Mr. Diaz has turned in a report from National Resources Conservation Services, is that correct?
It's called Web Soil Survey. It's part of the National
Oh, Web Soil Surveys, thank you.
United States Department of Agriculture. Basically, what this thing says is that a majority of the area that you've zoned, 25 acres is, we call a no-well mucky fine sandy loam, and another 25 acres is a deerfield loamy fine sand, which those two aren't suitable for septic systems or building construction. And I'll leave it at that.
Great. And your second question, sir?
The second question is, Mr. Kemet having a real estate license, does he have any
Excuse me,
financial interest?
Point of
in
order,
this?
Mr. Chairman.
I got it. Sure.
Point of order, Mr.
It's actually not, it's not anything to do with us creating a zone, Mr. Diaz. Thank you, I appreciate it.
No,
But if you have any
question
questions, if you have any questions in regards to that, I would
Does
refer
he
you.
have any financial interest in any of the properties?
Point of order,
that
Mr.
he
Chairman.
owns?
Point of order, Mr. Kemet?
Why should we be listening to this? Not part of it.
I agree. So, Mr. Diaz, if you have any questions in regards to any of the members' involvement with anything that we vote on in town, I suggest that you go to the best place for you to go, State Ethics Board. You could also require or request if there's been any
I don't need a
disclosure.
lecture. Okay, you can go on to the next.
Great, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Dave Mansfield, Stonebrook Drive.
Mr. Mansfield, how are you today?
I'm fine. I just had a question that's sort of related to what Mr. Diaz had referred to in his first comments. Is there anything in the state guidelines, or is there any even thoughts given to possible funding for infrastructure improvements to the area? And I think it relates here because a lot of infrastructure changes will need to be made. So has the state provided any means for us to get funding for that, which will allow us to actually function in this zone?
Yeah, great question, that's a very good question. I would have to say that we already know that as far as applying for any granting, if we don't apply that zone, that's out the window. So we won't, we certainly wouldn't, that would be on the taxpayers to pay for any of that infrastructure improvement if it's needed. But I'm sure the town planner might have a comment about that.
They have not taken that into consideration, and to Mr. Diaz regarding the soil conditions, it's the same thing. The state, for some reason, didn't make that one of the requirements, which I thought was odd myself, that they didn't make it part of the requirement when you create the zone, but that is not one of their criteria.
Well, if I might interject,
Mr. Mansfield.
that's how my question relates, because that would suggest that we will need sewage treatment in there because of that land. And if there's no funding proposed by the state, how can this zone be expected to be applicable?
Right, again, I'm going to state what I said a few minutes ago, it's a polished hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information that's been very ambiguous as far as regulation for the towns.
Right.
The state recognized in their regulation, the state recognized the powers and capabilities or abilities of towns to create zones. It was great to see that recognition. Thank you very much, state of Massachusetts, we appreciate that. That you recognize that 351 towns and municipalities have planning boards or zoning boards or any of that. That was great. No recommendation in regards to some of the concerns that were put forward about those exact things. They left it very ambiguous. And any comment I would make would be speculating about what the state's intent was.
I'm not surprised, I just want to comment.
Mr. Bennett?
All right, as you see, the requirement is a zone. There's nothing in it as far as how it gets built, or the process of it. We are required to zone an area for multifamily units. That's it.
Well, my question related to Mr. Diaz's question is, if this is not a buildable area without significant infrastructure, is it a legitimate zone?
The town
Under-
only needs to be compliant with the zone.
Under
with the
their,
creation of the zone.
under their model, that, so they gave each community a Excel workbook. And I went through it, but we let the consultants handle, I let them handle the lion's share of it because that's what they were hired to do, that's their. And the soils, again, I agree with you, the soils were not, they're not even considering it, they're not even looking at it. They're just saying, here's what you need to do in this workbook.
I think you mentioned lines on a map.
Yeah, and if it all fits in there, they look at it and say, okay, you're compliant. Now, this is me just pure speculation. Maybe they never actually talked to engineers or contractors, or looked at the soils maps. Or maybe they did, I don't know. But I just know that that's not, let's say, one of the 10 criteria, soils wasn't one of them.
Mr. Kevin?
I just wanted to add that this is a as-of-right bylaw, and whatever the as-of-rights are in this bylaw apply, but site plan review still exists. Is that
Correct.
true? So if that's true, then, all the review stuff that we would normally go through, most of that will still continue, so there's many more hearings to go. This isn't saying, these guys can start using the site tomorrow, they still have a long way to go.
If
Town planner.
if I may add to that, Mr. Chair, is under these, the zone gets created, and anyone that decides to go build in that zone does have to come before all the required boards. So if there's conservation, they have to go before conservation. There isn't anything that says, like a 40B, where they can reduce the distance to the wetlands. There isn't anything like that. They have to go before conservation, they have to go before the Board of Health, they have to go before the planning board as the site reviewer. The only thing it is similar to the act as far as like solar. So solar in Massachusetts, you can't deny it. You have to allow it. You can restrict it, but you cannot deny it. And this is similar in that sense, where you have to have it by right. You can have a site plan review, you can impose conditions, but you just can't deny it. But you can impose conditions to, whether buffers or, anything to make it the best possible project. So that's the one thing with it's not a circumventing bylaw to just say, okay, we can put up a 20-story building 0 feet from the street and have a septic system that's incapable of actually doing anything. So.
In the back.
Yeah, Frank Lacy, Brook Street. So just a question for you, Mr. Chair, to Tony. How much money have we gotten from these grants in the past couple of years? Do we have like an estimate about how much we've actually got from the grants that would be restricted if we pass this bylaw?
We've received in the last 2 years just under $500,000. I think the number's around $462,000 in grant funding. And the grants that we've received are, some of the projects are monies for the master plan, monies for pedestrian improvements on Main Street. we're looking at the development of the property that's owned by the town over on West Washington Street, a potential examining the town as a whole to see if 40Y starter home district is plausible. So there's, all those grants are being funded under that.
Okay, and second question is, isn't the majority of this land privately owned? And
The-
if I'm not mistaken, that land was also been owned by a developer since the 80s, so they have it's their land, they have the right to develop it under the law anyway, with them paying for all the, so like, what's the the question really is can you explain to me what's the downside, what's the difference here of doing this zone compared to the developer already owning that land? It's not like it's Hanson, a majority of it is in Hanson public land that we're developing.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be density, the ability, density. So, let's say today, if that property was developed, I believe it's residence,
There's a resident B section on this other side.
yeah, I think a residence A or double A. So they would have to go through subdivision and they would be able to get X amount of units.
Is there proper borders around that piece of private land if you did build something in there to develop it into I'll call it high occupancy, I don't know if that's the proper word for it, but is there efficient space to actually make a border around it, so it's like, not the neighbors next to it or not, right in the back of an apartment building essentially?
Well, the zone's made up of a lot of pieces of property. One of them is actually town-owned property, but there is a big chunk of it that is wooded. So at least one thing is that, yes, if that were developed, because it is wooded, you could have a project that could be, in essence, well hidden by buffers with trees. So it wouldn't be so visible.
Thank you.
Kevin Perkins, 86 Delaware.
Thanks, Mr. Perkins.
My concerns were kind of reiteration of what other people have commented on, but one was that, yes, as a private landowner, it looks like they own like 60 some odd acres, and to access this land that looks like in that district, there's very, very few vital access points, or potentially vital access points, that are either owned by that developer or owned by the town. So I just, one, I thought that was a little concerning, and then two, contradictory to, the concern is that if we don't create this zone, that we're gonna have a problem with, potential lawsuits, something like that. My concern would be if we're creating a fictitious zone that isn't really buildable to other people's comments, what happens then? Is there any repercussion from that?
Well, just to be very clear, it is not the planning board's determination whether it is buildable or not. That's not at this board. So we would make sure that we stay within the bounds of what we are here for, that is creating the zone.
Okay, that was my
Just
concern, if there's like
clear that,
some
yeah.
type of repercussion from like creating a zone that in the end it's not buildable, and the town got grant money, what happens at that
Right.
point?
If
So
I-
the second point was that in the determining factors of how to create the zone, again, very ambiguous. There was no determining factors or recommendations about access. So that was another kind of question mark that was left off the table. I don't know if that was something the planner was going to, town planner.
If I may, Mr. Chair. So this bylaw and map have been submitted to the state for review. And they require that you submit it 90 days prior to actually going to town meeting. So this is up at the state right now for review. So we've done everything that they've asked and in their model and everything like that. So now they're going to look at it. And they may say, okay, listen, you need to make some changes here or there. Or they'll approve it, straight out. So they have, let's say, a final say. They'll look at it and go, yep, you've met all the requirements, you're good to go, or they may make some changes. They may say, well, we really don't agree, you might have to change it here or something like that. So they are reviewing it. So the reason why it's coming this way in May is that if the state does require us to have some kind of changes or edit, we can use October town meeting to sort of finalize that.
So,
Mr. Perkins.
so I guess you answered my question with the concern. So if the state approves it, essentially, it's okay as far as then it can be adopted?
Correct.
That there wouldn't be
But-
there's no like hiccup down the road that if the town were to adopt this and do that, that there's no repercussion after the fact.
Correct.
The state had already kind of green-lighted it.
I would
Yes.
love to be able to say yes, I think the majority answer is
That's what it
yes,
sounds
but
like.
if the state
Yeah.
goes and reinvents the wheel again,
Right.
you know.
So, yeah,
Well, that
yeah.
was my main concern, that if we create this and it's not really feasible, and then there's repercussions down the
Yeah.
road.
Now, yes, the state will give us a thumbs up or thumbs down as to what we presented, and if we, whether or not we have to make changes to it. And so what that would allow is, because the compliance is the end of 2024, October town meeting to make any necessary adjustments.
There are some towns and municipalities within Massachusetts where this came down. Town for example is Lexington. Lexington it was very easy for them to be able to adopt this. Lexington looked at a half-mile radius from their MBTA station, oh no, guess what? They already had stuff built. So they just submitted to the state and said, here's our MBTA zone, look at all these buildings that we already have, what do you think? And the state said, perfect, Lexington, great job, you know, rubber stamp, you're all set. So there are some towns that have as of right zone, they needed to change some of their language, obviously, the as of right stuff, the multifamilies, things like that. But they already had an area, that half-mile radius from our station, again, which the town planner spent plenty of time trying to figure out the best fit of where this goes, where this to be. It's not as simple here in the town. Mr. Malisi.
So, on that point, Mr. Chair, is it possible to use the Phillips Street complex there as a part of this zone to kind of keep the acreage on the other side of the MBTA station down a little bit more?
The answer to that would be, for them to expand that, it would probably be up versus out.
So it has to, so there's a certain requirement of how high it has to be in order for it to actually meet the qualifications of the state.
We have, under the bylaws, we have a height restriction. So we're doing 3 floors and three floors, and I think it's 40 feet tall or something like that. So a place like, if you include Phillips Street, because of their limited area, let's say, you know, they would, if you include them in, they would probably want to say, well, we want to add 3 more stories to that, so now you're creating like a 6-story building. Similar to the other project that's on Main Street under construction at the moment. That wasn't included as well, because again, that site is relatively built out, so if that was to expand, it would have to be in a vertical versus a horizontal. And I'm thinking that, considering that in the flex overlay zone right now, that is a 3-story building, is not something that the town would be interested in going higher than 3 stories.
Any other questions, discussions? So in the end all, we agree, I think wholeheartedly, I'm not going to speak on behalf of everybody, but there's been discussions over these past years, and we agree. This planning board wholeheartedly agrees, as well as the town planner. This is not how we like to propose zoning changes in the town. There's nothing that we can do about it, and the threats that have been put out there are substantial. They have consequences if this was to get voted down. On top of that, I cannot comment enough about the hours that have been put in to create the best option that we all feel. And that's what was put forward to our select board. Our select board had a hearing about it and brought it back to us. It's the best option that we can do right now without absolutely saying and rejecting it and paying those consequences, or feeling those consequences that are substantial. We do know, because of what has happened, that the grant funding is going to cease. There's been enough discussion about it, whether it's on paper or whether it's been discussed during meetings. It is going to affect the town. It absolutely will. Is that strong arming? That's up to a lawyer to decide, or a judge to decide, or somebody at the state level, maybe even the Attorney General. But I read into the record the Attorney General's letter. So the Attorney General's a lawyer. So I'm thinking that they're probably not going to write something that they don't think they can stand behind. There is a lot of speculation, there is a lot of talk in regards to the 2 largest pieces of land that are inside the zoning district. If you spend a few moments' time on the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds, you'll find that the old Cape Realty LLC is the current owner of that property. Prior to that, it was a gentleman by the name of John Ferreira. Prior to that, it was Ruth Erin Brooks. Her father was Marcus Urin.
Uran.
Uran, thank you. I knew I was gonna mess it up. Marcus Uran, who is absolutely one of Hanson's treasures. He was the man that invented canning and processing of cranberries. That's the succession of that land, those two largest areas. And all I did was go on the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds to follow that succession. There were some plans, as it was speculated out in the ether, there were some plans back in the 60s in regards to a division of the property, but there's never been anything put on file to my recollection or my research with the town of Hanson itself to create anything different other than some land that we're not sure about the Uran family, about what, how that went down, how that got passed down, but that's the succession of that property, those two large properties themselves. Aside from that, the town of Hanson owns land, there's land that's the Cranberry Building itself, that's the Marangella property. So it wasn't snob zoned or any of that stuff that's out there in the ether. We are doing absolutely everything we can to present the best polished turd before the town meeting. And I'm going to use that term at town meeting, because that's what this is. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to thank everybody on planning, the board and the office, that you guys have done exceptional work for the people in town.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Mr.
And to
Hill.
get to this point, there has been many hours to follow a law that nobody wants to be following, but we're forced into following, and thank you again for taking the time and the energy to do that. That's
Appreciate it. Thank you.
above and beyond.
Mr. Malisi.
Sorry, just one more comment.
Please.
Can we get the planning board's guarantee if Milton fights this in court and the state has to back down, that there'll be a bylaw put in the following town meeting to rescind it?
That would be a legal question that we would leave up to town council about where we can go legally.
Selectmen's office.
I think that the intent, if there was any changes with this, and I certainly know that the members left and right of me have discussed what happens after this. We can't answer that collectively, what happens after this, but as the town planner said, this isn't the end of this. This isn't the end all. It's a compliance issue for us to be able to move forward, and then what happens after this is a completely different, it's a completely different subject. It'd be the same as us having a discussion about what if the state of Massachusetts rescinds the marijuana, brick and mortar buildings and, use of marijuana. We have to go and be reactionary to those changes. It's very difficult to predict the future, so. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, everybody listening that reviews this, the planning board, and I'm sure the town planner and our administrative assistant would have loved to have been able to dedicate the hours that they've put to this to other things that they could have dedicated to the town of Hanson. I know that for a fact, that this has totally diverted the planning office, but they're here smiling, they don't have any issues with it, they understand the asks, and we understand the asks of them, and we have to present this before the town meeting. Any other discussions? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to...
Mr. Chair.
Town planner.
I was thinking that maybe you could do this in a couple of motions. One is to accept the MBTA bylaw overlay district
So moved.
with edits. And then the second would be to accept the map.
You want to do that within the public hearing? Can we close the public hearing first?
You can do that after, but I just wanted to bring this to your attention. And
Yeah,
then,
thank
obviously, the last thing is that you want to put forward a report, whether you're going to do a support or not support to the select board.
Yeah, absolutely. The chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Kimmett. Seconded by Mr. Cohen. Any discussions in regards to closing the public hearing? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 401. Our public hearing is closed. Next item of business is the chair would entertain a motion to accept and move favorably to the select board the MBTA district map.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Benenato.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cohen. Any discussions in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 401, Tony. The chair would entertain a motion to move forward favorably to the select board, the draft zoning bylaws with the most recent edits from last week's meeting.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Cohen,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Benonato. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 401, Tony, that carries. Certainly, if anybody would like any other further information, don't hesitate to reach out to the town planner's office for any defining memos or stuff, paperwork that we've been dealing with. I appreciate everybody's attendance of our public hearing. Thank you very much. I think this is the most that we had since the last couple of years, Town planner.
Mr. Chair, I'm hoping within the next week or so to compile a FAQ sheet or a frequently asked questions sheet. And I know the state, I believe, has one out there. And I'll try to compile a package, if you will, and put it up on the webpage of the planning board and ask our social media department to put it out there.
Perfect.
So if folks want to access it, or a link at least to our webpage. So if folks want to read through it, the other place you can go is mass.gov and just type in MBTA zoning, and the web pages will come up, and that'll list all the information. But hopefully within the next week or so, I'll have information that was sent to us through the state that folks could read on their own.
Yeah, the mass.gov, it's a little bit of a rabbit hole to go down to that website. You can get lost in links.
So couldn't they do a handout at town meeting as well?
Yeah, I think that's going to transpose over to town meeting as a handout itself. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that, I think the town plan's talking about over the next couple of weeks. So please keep your eye out on the Town of Hanson Planning Board website, as well as some postings that are going to go out and follow up at town meeting itself.
So the next motion would be to provide a report to the select board regarding the MBTA zoning bylaws and map, and your determination as to whether it's
You want to do a
favorable.
separate favorable letter? So both motions that we have were to recommend favorable to the select board. You want to do an additional letter to them?
Well, you want to provide a report.
Yeah.
So as a board, do you want to provide a report? If the answer is yes, then
The chair would entertain that the town planner is recommended to write a report, favorable report in regards to the approval of the draft zoning bylaws for the MBTA zone and the MBTA zone, an MBTA district map.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded properly by Mr. Cohen, made by Mr. Kemen. Any discussions in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 401. We're probably going to print that report in the annual report as well at the end of the year. So thank you very much for attending. We appreciate all your input. Thank you. Appreciate your time, your efforts. Great comments, great dialogue. It's what we need in our town government to be able to have that back and forth with the citizens. And so we can educate everybody as well as to what's going on. So appreciate it.
Grab a master plan survey before you run out.
We're going to take a brief recess, and Megan is here from OCPC. She is up next to discuss our master plan. The Town of Hanson master plan is an integral part of the planning office and the town itself. So if you would like to use or like to take a survey, please see Megan. We'll be recessed for 2 minutes, please. It's 7:26. We're going to call the March 4th, 2024 meeting back into session. And next on our agenda, we have a discussion from Old Colony Planning Council, an appointment of 6:45, pardon our delay when we went through our public hearing, in regards to our master plan, Old Colony Planning Council meeting and update with Master Plan Steering Committee. So we also have members here from our Master Plan Steering Committee. With that, Megan, please have or Lori, please have the floor.
Who are we missing from the steering committee?
Peter.
Yeah.
Peter?
Butler?
That's it? Okay. That's fine, okay. So I just wanted
Oh,
to,
Megan, introduce yourself for the record.
Joe, if I'm gonna introduce myself, I have to tell you something.
Every time.
My name is not Megan.
Oh, what, I keep messing it up.
It's Rhiannon.
Rhiannon.
Does Megan work for VHB? That's my next guess. Okay.
Rhiannon,
So
sorry,
I'm
my
Rhiannon.
apologies.
I have started
Stand
responding to
corrected.
Megan and Hanson though, so that's fine.
Unless
That
he's
could
thinking
be your
of
alter
Megan
ego.
Fournier. That works for you guys.
True, Megan Fournier does work for us too.
Yeah.
So maybe it's that, but. So I am the project manager, so I am in charge of all the outreach that we do and all the project writing that happens. I'm just here to kind of talk about how last week's meeting went and discuss how tomorrow night's meeting will work. And any other updates that we have or any other feedback that everybody else has is great too. So I have up here the maps that we went through last week at our meeting. So we had the second public meeting last Thursday, and we had a decent turnout. It was at Camp Kiwani, and we had lots of great conversation about things that were needed in town and areas of concern. I will go through and read through some of the comments that were left on the maps. The main activity was to go through and write on maps some of the thoughts or ideas that we had. So some of the things that we talked about were enhancing parks and green spaces that already exist, considering the potential for an indoor sports center, better cell reception, increasing senior housing, connecting town forest to High Street, putting the senior center near the library. Aren't they already in the same building?
They are.
I don't think they can get any closer. However, they could have two buildings near each other. I think might be better. And creating an interconnected park system was a large one, so that's been an ongoing discussion that we've had in terms of the need of, there's a lot of trails in Hanson and park space, but how do we create pedestrian safety between? Let's see, what do we got left? Those are all pretty redundant on this one. And then this map, we were talking about dangerous intersections in town. So ones that were suggested were Liberty in winter, Liberty in spring, Route 5824 intersection, Brook Street and Winter Street, East Washington and State Street, and Cross Street and Route 14.
Which are pretty much all the intersections that are on your map that has the accident reports.
Yes. Yep, they pretty much line up. So the data and the lived experience pretty much overlap very well this time.
Do you know the order of those? You know, like, order of magnitude as accidents based on those, or?
When we do an official accident map and pull the data, we'll have it like tabulated by number. So we will have that by the end.
Okay.
It's all public record. The state police put out all their accident reports and the towns report to the state. So every accident is public record, so we have access to all of them, and then it's just a matter of pulling it all in. And then if it's because of the intersection, but it falls a little bit further down, it gets marked up a little differently. So it's not a perfect science, but we'll do our best to kind of piece together. And then we can like submit like the most populated ones that we have and then just back that up with the town's data because the police have offered to help us with that.
Have I sent you a copy of that Complete Streets one yet?
No.
Okay, so I'll do that tomorrow. Make a note of it today. I've been meaning to do that.
I have a draft email that I haven't sent you in 3 weeks, so it's all good. But those were some of the main takeaways was that the intersections and none of the intersections were really a surprise. And then, you know, the ongoing conversations that we've been having about connecting park space. So we're gonna do the same thing tomorrow night, but we're gonna do it online. So it's gonna be on Zoom. It's gonna be at 6:30 still. Basically, I'll have a PowerPoint that'll go through the beginning of that first meeting we had where I explained the whole process. Because every meeting we've had some new people and I wanna make sure that everybody understands kind of what we're trying to accomplish. And then I have this huge page set up. It's called Miro. It basically gives you a digital whiteboard. And I have all the maps digitally on there so we can zoom in and compare them just like we would at circular tables. hoping it'll go well. I have a backup PDF if it crashes on me in the middle of presenting, but we'll do our best. But yeah, if anybody that you know missed the meeting, strongly encourage them to come to the online one. You don't have to leave your house, you don't have to turn your camera on. It's great. So hopefully we'll get some more feedback that way.
Rhiannon, how are we doing as far as our timeline?
Our timeline, we're doing pretty good. I'll have the first 3 chapters for review 1 week from today. So it'll be introduction, facilities, and land use.
Okay. Oh,
And
say that
then-
again, it's gonna be an intro,
Intro, facilities,
facilities, nice.
and land use.
Land use, awesome.
Those will be the first 3 ready for review.
Great.
And then so one thing that I always want to clarify with this is that everything is happening at once and you're getting it in chunks. So just because I'm only giving you 3 chapters, there's writing for all 9 chapters happening. They're just not all at the same stages. Some chapters write themselves faster than others. And then because the survey doesn't close until March 12th, and you're getting things that have been written prior to that, there's still time to go back if something comes up that we hadn't foreseen in those chapters. The facilities chapter really writes itself because we go to like every department head who runs a facility and we ask them what they want, need, what's working and what's not, and we put it in. So the only thing that could be different is from the resident's perspective, something's not working that wasn't noted to the departments. But that's not common,
How are we with the online survey?
The online survey, we're at about 246.
Oh, wow.
And then I have a few more that Kim has been messaging over to me that I have to input, so we're
That's
maybe a
great.
little over 250.
So that's
good.
4 weeks ago, we were at 80.
Yeah, we've made, the last month, we've really come up with our numbers, so.
Great.
One last push this last week to try to get anybody else who wants to respond. It's really at this point just so nobody says to me that they didn't know that there was a master plan happening and they didn't know they were supposed to take a survey. So that'll be my last push. I might, because March is sneaking up on us so quickly, I haven't gotten to go to the COA directly yet. They've just been having, I've been having communication issues over there. So I'll close the online survey and might have like a paper survey day there. And then I can manually input those on my end. If we see the need for it. Because that was really the only thing that didn't happen in that timeline. We did do outreach at the library itself, yeah.
Where can we find the link for tomorrow night's Zoom session?
It is on the OCPC website and it should be on the town website. Maybe?
Yeah, I believe,
Kim, can you pull it up real
yeah,
quick?
it should be,
Thank you.
because I sent that over to our IT
Mhm.
last week. We sent them the flyer, and the flyer had the link. I know it's out there on the social media. We can email it to you.
That was a threat, not a promise.
No, I know that we reached out to our IT, excuse me, our IT folks
So-
about tomorrow night's Zoom.
When you
And they put on
go
the social
to
media.
the planning board page and you get the master plan page, it brings you right to OCPC and the link is there. So. Are we able to put up on the screen
Hey, Tony can.
where it lives?
Yeah.
Because if it's not published, I can. It has been sent to, we have a little over 100 people that are on an email contact list and they all have an email to them.
Great.
So those are people that have taken the survey and have asked for continuous updates digitally. And it's on OCPC's Instagram and Facebook and Twitter/X/Elon Musk, whatever it's called today.
I don't see it.
Okay. I will work on it.
So if you go right to Town of Hanson, easy access.
It's not coming up on mine.
So it's right on the homepage for the Town of Hanson.
Mhm.
But there, I don't see any link for tomorrow.
Okay. Oh, spell the link? If you click town hall, or that Zoom wasn't updated, got it.
We have to delete that.
Well, I will go put that up as soon as I get home and get back on Wi-Fi.
So for the folks that are listening on the YouTube broadcast, we have 1% of the town population that is going to get notified of the meeting for tomorrow night. We have 2.5% of the population that have answered the survey. So please, ladies and gentlemen, if you could, reach out and take that survey. Does anybody have, oh, Lori, did you have a presentation? Does anybody have any questions for Rhiannon? Got it.
Other than fixing the website. That I'll do as soon as I get home.
So is this the worst intersection in town?
No, this is pre-existing drone footage. If you play it though, it's beautiful. It goes right over the property. Tony's trying to find the Zoom link. You guys can see
I
it.
know
Look
it's
at how
not
green.
technically in Hanson, but given that you're also writing these bridge waters at the moment,
Of course.
did Central Street and Franklin Street pop up on their accident report?
I don't remember.
I don't think that came up on our map.
Well, it's not in Hanson.
It's
It's
Central-
yeah, Central Street and Franklin.
Yeah, by,
That's
assistant.
right now.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll get back to you on that and
Yeah, I
check.
think we did have a
Just
little bit
missed
on
out.
those.
I know that there's been
Absolutely.
conversation around it. So when you see this picture on Instagram, in the description underneath is the Zoom link. But it's not actually on the website. So I will do that as soon as I get back on the internet at home. I can't do it from my phone, so I'm not signed in. But that'll be up for tomorrow morning, and then I will share it to Tony, and Tony can get it up tomorrow.
Great.
Yeah.
We can promote it on social media on our.
We've been,
Yeah.
yeah. So the Zoom link's been going around. And I've had questions about it over the email, so I know that people are getting it. My only other things for tonight. Talked about the meeting, talked about tomorrow night's meeting's going. Survey's gonna close March 12th with the potential of holding a separate paper day with the COA. And next Monday, which is 4 + 7 is 11, okay? I'll have the first 3 chapters ready for review. Like I said, the intro, the land use, and facilities. And then from there, I'll have it about every 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, you'll get another chunk to go through. So those will go back, you'll give edits, those will go back to those people, you'll get the next set of chapters, and it will just keep cycling through. And then we are looking to do a final meeting in I want to say early June. And we'll do a public meeting with all the final action items that we've gathered through this process. And then people can let us know if they have any last minute public comment, and then it'll get accepted by the planning board when it's done in June. And then it's up to the town whether or not they want to bring it to town meeting. It's not a legal requirement, but it is a good way to reconfirm the importance of it for the town. So totally up to the town though, and then please continue to reach out if there's anything that you need from me throughout the process.
Great. Thank you, Rhiannon. Appreciate it. Thank you, Lori. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
If there's no other further questions, we're going to move on. Board business. Board business for our next planning board meeting, tentatively scheduled for
Mr. Chair?
town planner.
Accept the meeting minutes?
I'll do that next. I put it on the end.
Okay.
So, next planning board meeting tentatively scheduled for Monday, March 25th, 2024, 6:30 PM.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Mr. Kimmel for us to hold the planning board meeting Monday, March 24th, 2024. Any discussion in regards to that motion?
24th or 25th.
Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries 401. Tony, can you please make sure Mr. Ellis knows?
Can you double check that date?
25.
Should be the 25th, not the 24th.
March 20, did I say 24?
Yeah.
Correction, March 25th, omit for the record, sorry, March 25th. I'm doing the 4 of 2024. Can you please send an email notice out to Mr. Ellis to let him know that that has been voted on? And we have our last order of business, which is the discussion or approval of February 26, 2024 public meeting minutes. That would be item 1 in your package, gentlemen.
So,
Before we approve them, can I just make a note on it?
Well, motion's been made by Mr. Benonato,
I'll second it.
and Mr. Kimmett has seconded that motion to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion in regards to that motion? Sorry for drawing on you.
Oh, yeah, just a slight edit. It is February 26 minutes. On the top, it says February 12th.
Wow,
Just a
thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Benonato, would you
Thank you,
Would
Mr.
you
Pillen.
adjust your motion?
So moved with the adjustment.
Mr. Benoit has made a motion to accept the February 26th, 2024, 6:30 PM minutes with adjustments previously discussed by Mr. Cohen. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Kemen has made second to that. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 401. Those minutes are record. And the last order of business we have, unless Tony, you have anything for good of the order?
I
If you want to.
Oh, I will not be in the office this week, but I will be checking emails.
Okay, checking email. Okay, great. Chair would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Kemet.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cohen. Any discussion in regards to adjournment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's 7:44. We are adjourned.